Animal Crossing is a series that I have loved for years. It's actually a generational love that's been passed down. Originally, my older sister and my mum would play the DS game, but as I grew up, as early as when I could read and write, I played Wild World religiously. The love for the series stuck with me for years, picking up every new entry as they released, as well as going back and picking up the original. As New Horizons came out, however, it brought a wave of new fans. I mean, a horde of new fans. Along with them, a stronger fan base was born. We started seeing more and more discussions about the games, but alongside that, there was also a lot more discourse than there was before, as is to be expected. And one topic that keeps reoccurring is, which is the best game in the series? There's not really a common consensus. I think I've seen every game be labelled the best at least once. So, I'm going to give you my opinion that nobody asked for and use this opportunity to discuss each game in the series. See how much they brought to the table at release compared to how they are now. Discuss some of the more controversial elements of each release and try to determine what game is the best in the series. This is basically going to be a deep dive / retrospective / me waffling on for however long about probably my favourite game series of all time. Now, before we start, I'm going to note I will only be looking at the mainline games that were released in English. No Happy Home Designer or Amiibo Festival. If I see anybody saying,
well, Debutsu no Mori E+ for the IQ players, technically another game because...
I'll kill your dog. Oh, that's too... With that said, let's start with the original Animal Crossing for the GameCube. Animal Crossing, sometimes called Population Growing because of the tagline, was the first Animal Crossing game we got in the West. Released in America in 2002, whilst Europe got the game disgustingly late in 2004. The series got its start in Japan on the N64, with several releases, but those have been discussed to death and aren't really relevant to the topic at hand. Plus, a lot of them are kind of the same game with small things added or removed. This was the game that actually got me to do this video and reignited my Animal Crossing addiction. I'd been watching a lot of Hunter R, a YouTuber who mainly makes videos about population growing. I bought Population Growing a good few years back. I didn't put loads of time into it as I was in the peak of my New Leaf phase. At the time, I thought that compared to New Leaf, the game was boring, so I dropped it. But after picking it up again and giving it my full attention, it's got me hooked. What I'm really enjoying about the game this time around is its simplicity. That might sound like a bad thing. After all, we've been conditioned to believe that, more is better. But we'll see later, that's not always the case. Because it's the first game in the series, it's got the bare essentials needed for an Animal Crossing game. I name my town Hometown after a song by the Wannadies. I rock up as a brokey. Tom Nook sets me up with a house. I set off to pay him back. You have the shop, the Able Sisters, the museum, and your villagers. Because the game is so simple, it's much easier to focus your attention on tasks. You aren't dividing your attention across a million things. You have a couple of things at most on your radar at any time. It's really good and it creates a really relaxing pace, which is what Animal Crossing was supposed to be. What has really impressed me about this game is the villagers. For the first game in the series, I didn't really know what to expect. They were still finding their footing, so the villagers could have been a bit lackluster, but no, they went full send on these lads. I want to talk to my villagers. I purposely go out of my way to talk to them because they always have something at least somewhat unique to say. Now, obviously, it's a common joke that the villagers in Population Growing had #NoChill. They'd berate you and kind of be little bitches, I'm not gonna lie. And that is true, but you don't get the wrong idea. They're not just dickheads. They do have a wide range of dialogue. What I actually enjoy most about the villagers in this game is not their aggressiveness, but how out of pocket they can be. Not in a rude way, just completely random. Such as this time, where a villager comes up to me and says that they've painted my fucking roof. Like, that's kind of funny, but there's no way that's... Wait, what the fuck? What? What? They can also just force you to take things, or, the weirdest fucking thing, forcefully take things from you. Like, it is possible for a villager to come up and just fucking steal half the money on your person. Booker, Cooper, what the fuck are you doing? I just got mugged in broad daylight and you're doing nothing about it. What's my town rating? North fucking Tala. Although the game is quite simplistic, it also has a lot of features that never returned to other Animal Crossing games. A lot of holidays, for example. The holidays are one of this game's strong suits. A lot of them are extremely unique. Future games kind of fell into this trap of making nearly all holidays fetch quests, but God knows what you'll be doing in population growing. You could be stealing a knife and fork so that a turkey doesn't get fucking cannibalized, doing a few morning stretches, or turning on a lighthouse at certain times. There is also the island. Yes, an island did appear in the later games, but population growing does it really coolly. That's not a word. Connecting your GBA would allow you to access an island with a unique villager and your own house. I dub this island Little St. James. All these features that didn't return help the game to feel fresh even after playing through the whole series. It doesn't feel like I'm playing through the first installment, it feels like I'm playing a new Animal Crossing game. There are also features that I can't even access as a fucking filthy Euro trash European, such as the e-reader station. In the States, you could get cards that you could scan that lets you get free items and villagers, which was one, really ahead of its time, and two, still a really sick idea. Not only that, but it turns out you can completely reverse engineer the cards, so if you were dedicated enough, you could create completely new villagers in a vanilla copy of Animal Crossing. Obviously, when the game released, this would be extremely hard to do, near impossible, but we have the tools to do it for us now, so it's genuinely a possibility. Now, the game is not perfect. For example, donating to the museum. In literally every other game, hand blathers a fossil. Do you want to donate it? Yeah, cool, done. This game, go find your fossils, go ship them off, wait 3 to 5 business days to get them back, and then donate them one by one while waiting another 3 to 5 business days for Bladder to shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up! Please, I beg! There's no watering, so getting flowers is a pain, which makes getting Perfect Town a lot slower. And I have no idea what the game's obsession is with doing things one by one. That being said, growing pains were to be expected, but I really love my time with population growing, and I'm still continuing to play it and upkeep my town. At the time of writing, I've nearly paid off all of my debt, and my main goal is going for a perfect town. Oh, and since I've literally no idea where to put this, so I tried to make my town tune this, and when she lets me slip away, which sounded good, until I realised that it sounds the exact same as this. Right, fuck that, music privileges revoked for the town. I'm gonna try keep nostalgia away from this section, but it's gonna be hard because Wild World was the game of my childhood. The game released in 2005 in the States and 2006 in Europe. Discussion about Wild World has always been very one way or the other. Either you love it or you despise it. Well, if we look at it now, okay, yes, it's a bit crusty. But let's think back to when the game released. It added so much stuff that would be series staples. It's hard to see how anybody would think it's a bad game. But maybe that is just my nostalgia talking. I have my original copy of Wild World, but because I need footage, I'm going to have to start a new save on an emulator. I decided to name my town Texas. Why? Well, it was the name of my original town, but why Texas? Because I was a stupid child, and one of the few place names I knew was Texas after watching lots of SpongeBob. Right, so just out of curiosity, I booted up my old copy of Wild World, okay? Just, had nothing better to do. I didn't even fucking call my town Texas. I called it Texas. IS. I was a fucking idiot child. The game makes you do your usual. Choose a house, work for Tom Nook for a bit, and then you finally start the game. Already, just walking around, you can see that there's some improvement from the GameCube game. Firstly, it's introduced the rolling pin world. Something that would be a staple in the series, all the way up till New Horizons. No more loading between grids. Traveling around the world feels a lot more refined. Actually, that's how I would describe most of the features in Wild World. Improved and refined from how they were on GameCube. For example, item management is a lot easier. You're not always forced to do things one thing at a time, like sending letters. You also have the touch screen, which makes it a lot easier to just drag and drop things. Your character model has also been refined. In population growing, you could change your clothes, but it would only change the pattern. You are always stuck with the same Viking helmet or princess hat. When I was younger, I hated this look for the characters. But now I actually really like it. I think it really fits with the GameCube's charm. But now that's no longer an issue because you have free range over what your character wears. You still have your usual t-shirts, but now you also have hats, glasses, helmets. There is so much more customizability, including hairstyles. When I was younger, I didn't have the Shampoodle shop for a while. So if I'd visit a friend's town and they had it, you knew I was going for a makeover! But the thing is, the game does not let you just, choose a hairstyle, okay? This ain't GTA. You have to, choose certain dialogue options. I never had a hair guide handy, so I would hope and pray that my barber didn't fuck my shit up, which most of the time, she did. Staying on the lines of customizability, there's also way more house upgrades, which gives you so much more room to decorate. This game also added the flag feature, which let you set a town flag. The game really helped to make it feel like it was your town. You choose the name, the tune, the town flag. You could even add patterns to the ground to make paths, letting you develop the town even further if you wanted. And even with all of this, that is not the best part of the game. No, what I love about Wild World is the villagers, yet again. Population Growing's villagers were great, but Wild Worlds are a step beyond. This was the first game to have a quote-unquote friendship meter. It's not something that's visible during gameplay, it's an internal counter, but as you talk to your villagers, help them with tasks, their friendship level increases. This also works the other way. Insulting them, sending them shite, not doing their favors will decrease your friendship level with them. When you have a higher friendship level with a villager, they will treat you better the better you treat them. As stupid as this sounds, I love this feature because it makes it feel like if I'm friends with a villager, I'm friends with them for a reason, not just because the game decided, be nice. If a villager is being a dickhead, it's probably because I was first, not just for the sake of, being rude. It's kind of like a perfect middle ground between all the games in the series villagers. And again, villagers in the game are still very out of pocket, especially in Wild World. They're all gossipy little bitches. They constantly talk about who they think is dating who, because, apparently there's villager relationships. Cool. Alright, sure. Or they'll just chat shit about somebody behind their back. They're still quite out of pocket, but not as much as population growing, which I think is a good thing. You're not going to get robbed in broad daylight or a random house renovation anymore, thank fuck, but the villagers do ask you some weird ass shit. Half the time they rock up to you and they're like, "Hey pal, what's your PPS number?" Probably the second best improvement from the GameCube game is the music. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the GameCube music. I think it fits with the whole charm of the game. However, there's a couple of tracks that, don't really blend together, and some of the hourly tracks don't really fit the time that they're supposed to be played at. For example, the 2 a.m. track. Wild World's tracks are absolutely beautiful though. Kazumi Tataka locked the fuck in when making these, and I genuinely love them. There is not a single track where I go, this could have been a little better. No, I genuinely think this might be one of the best video game soundtracks ever. No word of a lie. This game really cemented what an Animal Crossing track sounds like, so much so that when somebody replicates the style, it's almost immediately recognizable where they took inspiration from. Sorry, I know I'm glazing, but genuinely I have every single track burned into my brain because a lot of them are genuinely beautiful pieces of music. I have also yet to talk about the biggest selling point of the game, the fact that it's portable. Now, for me, I don't really play games out and about anymore, but obviously this is extremely useful for other people. It also means that I can have my DS beside my bed, so I can just check my town first thing in the morning and before I go to sleep. Especially when New Leaf came out, this became a big part of my routine. Now, here was where I was going to put my negatives, but I genuinely cannot think of any. Yes, obviously games after it had many more features, but I don't think it's fair to judge a game based on future installments. Plus, you probably couldn't even get a lot of these features into the game due to hardware limitations. The main complaint people have is the removal of some holidays like Toy Day and Halloween, but genuinely, I have never played Animal Crossing on these days. Even when I set out to, I just don't have the time. Not to mention, I think some of the ones they added in return, like the flea market where you could go over and buy items from villagers' houses, and also vice versa, are a lot more interesting than Toy Day, which is basically just another fetch quest. The only complaint is that the game looks a bit crusty after playing all the games in the series, but again, hardware limitations, it was released in 2004. Even still, that whole aesthetic, including the crust, is really nostalgic for me, and every piece of art and merch from that point brings back great memories. Now we are on to the first Animal Crossing game that was solely mine. Animal Crossing, Let's Go to the City. Yeah, so sometimes different regions get different names for games, and most of the time when this happens, I think Europe gets the much better name. But yeah, Let's Go to the City, although it's a very nostalgic title for me, it's quite a mouthful and it doesn't really fit in amongst the other games' titles. City Folk is just much better, but at least it's not the Japanese title. Animal Crossing, Let's Go to Town.
Animal Crossing just got freaky.
I remember seeing ads for this game on TV all the time. So I have to assume I got this game when I was 6, which seems a bit young, so maybe I'm misremembering. And still, I was a stupid child, so when I got the game for Christmas, I named my town Texas again, because that is all I know. Now, I remember playing this game quite a lot. Not as much as Wild World, but enough that it would piss off my mum when I was playing this shit when she wanted to watch Judge Judy. And that's one of the main drawbacks for the game. You can't take it anywhere you want. Now, that might not be a downside for everybody, But for someone with 3 siblings, 2 parents, getting time on the TV to play was a difficult task. Whereas with Wild World, I was playing that shit wherever. However, that is my own personal problem. That's not really a problem with the game, although losing its portability is a loss. It's not gonna decrease my opinion of the game. What will decrease my opinion of the game is the main selling point, the city. As a kid, I ate it up. But when you take a step back and actually look what the city gets you, it's barely anything new from Wild World. You have Crazy Reds, a shop that was in Wild World, the Marquee, a place you could learn emotes, which you could learn in Wild World, the Happy Home Academy, which is literally just used to display your score, something you could get in the mail anyway, Gracie Grace, a more expensive Tom Nooks, the Auction House, which I never used because of Wi-Fi connectivity, Shampoodle, already in Wild World, Katrina, already in Wild World, and Kix, who changes the colour of your shoes. All 5 pixels of them. Sound pal, thanks for that. I don't want to sound jaded, but this is the main change between Wild World and City Folk. They haven't really added much. They've just shuffled some shops around and called it a day. And I'm not just nitpicking, this is the section of changes on the Animal Crossing wiki. Now, I will say, the graphical upgrade is a lovely improvement, especially on Wild World, but that's like the main reason you'd play this game, is the graphical improvement. This is also when villagers began to get a bit watered down. Now, they're not too far gone from Wild World, but you can definitely feel them being toned down personality-wise. This section is really short compared to the rest of them. But that's because most of the notable features I've already mentioned in the Wild World section. And I know it seems like I'm giving off the impression, but City Folk is not a bad game. Nowhere near. The core gameplay is as good as Wild World. But as someone who really likes the portability aspect and doesn't mind the worse graphics, what reason do I have to play this version when most of the features are in a game I can keep beside my bed and check as I please, rather than having to go home, sit down, rip out one of my 3 Wii's. Yes, I have 3 Wii's. I have no idea why either. Take up a HDMI slot on my monitor. But if you don't care about portability, it's absolutely a great Animal Crossing game. I've just talked about most of the features. Before we go any further, I would really appreciate it if you subscribed. I've worked really hard on this video and it's by far my longest video. My goal for this year was 20k and I'm probably going to fall short. I'd still really appreciate you subscribing. Who knows, this video might not even release before the year ends, but still anything helps. Anyway, back to the video. New Leaf was elusive to me for years. Very few people I knew owned a 3DS, and the ones who did were not the type to play Animal Crossing. I would see random clips of it on YouTube. I rewatched that one PBG video over and over, and that Twin Peaks parody by Swimming Bird. I've never watched Twin Peaks. I have no knowledge of it. The only knowledge I have of Twin Peaks I got from this fucking series. New Leaf was a system seller. It was the step forward that the series needed. Had it gone forward as City Folk had, just adding new shops and items, it would be nowhere near as popular. This time around, the intro seems the same. You move to your new town expecting to make a life for yourself, but once you step off the train, you're greeted with the whole town awaiting your arrival. Apparently, because of some mix-up, you're the new mayor. Making you the mayor opens up a whole new world of customization for your town. You can choose where the bridges go. You can change the look of the town hall, build actual structures and buildings. All of this makes it feel like an actual town. I've always tried to get perfect towns in Animal Crossing games before this, but New Leaf was the first one that I've actually accomplished it, because the control I had over my town actually made me want to get the town looking as best I can. As you can see, I've put a bit of effort into it, just a small bit. This also brings me to my next topic, flower breeding. Now, yes, before you say it, flower breeding was around since Wild World, but it became extremely popular during New Leaf's era for whatever fucking reason. And you could say that I enjoyed it. And it's alright. I think my love for flower crossbreeding stems from town tours I watched when I was younger. The towns that stuck with me were the towns that had streets lined with flowers, colour coordinated, golden, stuff like that. I kind of took that as being what to strive for in an Animal Crossing town. And revisiting it for this video, I'm still quite proud of it. Now, you might be wondering, how is it that my town is not infested with weeds after playing for so long? Well, that's another feature the game adds: ordinances. As the mayor, you can make laws. Unfortunately, you can't instate martial law, but there's several ordinances you can choose from. Like making your town grow lots of flowers and barely any weeds, keeping shops open later, making shops open earlier, inflate your economy. I'm not even joking, there's an ordinance that makes your items sell for more bells, but items in the shops cost more money. It's all about how you want to run the town. But who do you have to run the town with you? Oh yeah, Isabelle. It's kind of crazy how quickly Isabelle became the face of Animal Crossing. Like, the closest thing Animal Crossing had to a mascot before this was either KK Slider, Tom Nook, or Rover, maybe? Then, Isabelle rocks up and boom, everything is hers. I am not gonna hate it though, because I absolutely love Isabelle. She's very cute and helpful. Well, actually, everybody in the game is very cute and helpful. Actually, funnily enough, that's one of my few problems with the game. This game has quite a noticeable drop in villager personalities. Villagers are extremely toned down compared to Wild World and City Folk. They'll never say anything that out of pocket, and even if they do, it's just kind of a wow, so random thing. Denying villager requests never really makes them mad, just like slightly disappointed. It sounds like a small thing, but it is noticeable during gameplay. Now, the villagers aren't terrible, they're still very talkative, and especially in this game, there's a lot of activities that they want to do with you. But New Leaf definitely set the groundwork for what would be the worst villagers in the whole series. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The shopping district returns! But this time, it is not a big selling point. It's like an actually useful part of your town that creates a hub of basically every building you need, which I actually really like. We do have some new additions like the club, Kix finally gets his own shop, the Happy Home Academy now actually has a purpose, it sells any house cosmetic changes you want. But one of the coolest changes is one that unfortunately doesn't work anymore, the Dream Suite. By entering the Dream Suite, you could view other people's towns without having to be invited. And the best part is, you could fucking wreck the place. And it has no effect after you leave, because the place just resets to its original save. It's just a copy of the town, it's not the actual town itself. You could visit specific towns by a code, or just be sent to a random town. I would spend afternoons and nights just going to random towns. Obviously, there was a lot of towns, but sometimes you'd find an absolutely beautiful one that somebody clearly loved. There was also some horror towns which were genuinely a bit creepy, like Ica Village. This was during the peak of creepypastas, so being able to actually visit one of these towns was really freaky. Unfortunately, this feature doesn't work anymore after the closure of 3DS Online Play feature. I wish I had realised this was going down when it did, so I kept an archive of some cool dream towns. But apparently there is a group called Pretendo, which has an archive of over 200,000 dream towns. So who knows, maybe mine's in there somewhere. Another feature that was lost when Wi-Fi connectivity was lost for this game was probably my favourite feature. Not just in the whole game, but in the whole series, the island. Yes, it makes a return from the GameCube game finally, but this time it's a lot different and a lot better in my opinion. Going to the island brings you not only to an island, but also a new shop that allows you to buy island-specific items, rent tools, and sell items, though at a horrific price.
Are you serious?
He's an idiot. He's a con artist.
Think we're done here?
To everybody who's watching, don't buy it. I'm out.
You.
You could also play mini games to win medals that you can use in the island shop. These were actually really fun mini games. But what I loved most was multiplayer. Now, technically, this island is still in the game in single player, but you could choose to either meet people randomly worldwide or just in your country. I would spend nights just chatting away to anybody who'd listen all across the globe. Obviously, there was a few non-English speakers and some freakazoids, like the guy who tried to talk to me about dog penises. I'm not even joking. But the majority of interactions I had were wholesome. It's really a shame that this feature is lost to time now. I will miss it. The game also has a new aesthetic that kind of brings the series into the modern era. From the GameCube to City Folk, you kind of had your short, stubby characters, but now the characters are a bit more detailed and you get to have a lot more customization over your characters. You still have your hats and your t-shirts, but now you also have trousers to choose from. As well as that, you can also dress as either gender. A fucking Animal Crossing's gone woke, 0 out of 10, boycott it! As I mentioned earlier, there's a dedicated shoe shop and you can get contacts. I do really like what they've done to the characters in this game. I vaguely remember a small bit of discourse about the new characters' looks, but in my opinion, they help modernize the characters without going too far from the original designs. And that's kind of the whole aesthetic of the game. Modernizing whilst keeping it Animal Crossing. I do kind of have to cut myself off from talking about this because I will yap on forever. But the last thing I will say is this game is probably the reason I have a presence on the internet. The Animal Crossing subreddit was the first subreddit I joined after playing New Leaf. I was blown away that there was so many Animal Crossing fans because in real life, I knew barely anybody who liked Animal Crossing. From there, I joined the Discord and the brain rot spread from there, for better or for worse. So no matter what your opinions are on this game, it's always going to be incredibly close to me and nobody's going to change that. Right, I'm ready to get into the trenches because this is probably the most controversial and split opinion game out of the whole series. This game was one that actually inspired me to make this video. Originally, I was just going to look at New Horizons and see, is it as bad as people say? Or does it deserve the sales and the praise that people give it? Before we talk about the actual game, I want to talk about the build-up to the release, because I think it has a major impact on how people view the game. It was 2020, literally just as the pandemic started. Some countries were already under lockdown, while some, like Ireland, were about to go into one. I myself had pre-ordered the game as soon as pre-orders were available, and I was terrified. Not about the fucking Plague Inc. game that was being played across the world, but that it might stop me from picking up my video game. I had my priorities straight, but I did manage to get it in time, with the pre-order bonus. And I think it was literally a day or two after, Ireland went into a full-on fucking lockdown. So, everybody is completely stuck inside. Nothing to do, and a largely anticipated life simulator releases. Now it's not just Animal Crossing fans who are buying the game, it is everybody who has ever enjoyed Animal Crossing at some point in their life. Which also brings in people who've never even played an Animal Crossing game in their life. AKA
Fucking normies.
this series of events will be important for later. New Leaf gave you keys to the city by making you the mayor. But this game gives you a fucking union of workers by making you the island representative. You fly to a deserted island by plane with 2 other villagers and the Nook family. And you've basically single-handedly got to develop the island. The only thing that is done for you is like the town hall. Everything else, the shops, the bridges, the roads, it's all got to be done by you. Now, in my opinion, I loved doing this. It's kind of a more extreme version of what you do in all other Animal Crossing games. You have to work to expand your shop, work to expand your house. It's like the same thing, but it feels really fresh and you feel a sense of accomplishment as your island starts to develop. The first couple of days of your town are all about this development. There's actually kind of an end point or a halfway point in the game. It's a notable shift. After you've set up a couple of villagers in their houses and gotten a 3-star rating, KK Slider comes and plays on your island. After this point, it becomes more like a traditional Animal Crossing game, kind of giving you your free reign to do whatever you want, because you don't have to develop the island any further if you don't want to. You also get your hourly music, because up until this point, you've only had an ambient guitar track. Now, I did say you don't have to develop the island anymore if you don't want to. But what if you do want to? Well, that's where island terraforming comes in. You are now able to literally shape the island to your fucking will. Not just where each building is, but cliffs, rivers, waterfalls, anything. Make your whole island an ocean, who gives a shit? I forgot to mention, you also have the ability to place items outside, which is a first for the series, and lets you customize the island even more. These were all the main selling points of New Horizons. And everything I've just spoken about, I love about the game. So why are opinions so mixed about it? Well, it's kind of a death by 1,000 paper cuts kind of thing. It's hard to get all the reasons in a concise list, and not everybody agrees on what is a positive and what's a negative. So, I'm gonna have to ask you to bear with me whilst I go through issues either me or other players had. One thing that everybody agrees on is this: the villagers are shite. Not the actual designs, a lot of the new ones are actually really good. Oh fuck, I'll get back to you later. But they have a personality of a fucking wet wipe. Villagers always had personality types: jock, snooty, normal, whatever, and their dialogue fits into that personality. But the earlier games made it so that villagers would still be rude or out of pocket no matter what their personality types are. And City Folk and New Leaf had enough random lines of dialogue that odds are you never get sick of talking to your villagers. It upsets me to say I hate talking to my villagers in this game. Ones I loved in the previous game, I will run right past because when I do talk to them, I get one line of dialogue that vaguely fits their personality, and then the text box closes. That's not what I talk to my villagers for. I talk to my villagers because I want to hear them yap their brains out for the chance they might say something cool or out of pocket, but I don't even have the chance in New Horizons because I think I've seen every single line of villager dialogue. Seriously. I've had the villagers repeat themselves so many times. It's not even like they're repeating anything worthwhile. It feels like Nintendo got so focused on the island aspect of the game that they completely forgot about the whole other side of what makes the series what it is. That is a genuine downside that I don't think anybody will disagree with. Next thing for me is mixed. It's the crafting. The game added the ability to craft furniture, items, tools. Some people hate crafting altogether. They feel like it's not Animal Crossing. Personally, I think it's fine. It's fairly fun, and after a while, it's barely necessary to do after you unlock the shop. However, you might have caught that I said tools there. Every single one of your tools has durability, which means it can break. They have never fucking done this in any other game before this. The only exception is the axe, which was to make sure you didn't pull a fucking lore axe on your town. Why in the game where you're encouraging people to terraform and craft basically the game in the series that you'll be using your tools the most, do you add item durability? It's ass backwards. Even if that was just for the early game section when you were developing your island, it's fine. It kept me on top of things. But when the tools that I'm buying out of shops are breaking after my town looks like this, or better yet, the golden tools, the items that have been rewarded to you as prizes for doing the maximum in a certain area, having a perfect town, catching all the fish, you think they'd make them indestructible. No! I am kind of overplaying how much this point bothers me. When I'm playing the game, it's annoying. I don't get physically angry. What does make me angry though is how such a simple mistake made it past testing. It absolutely baffles me. And one of the biggest complaints is the lack of content at the game's launch. This is going to be a hard one to unwrap, because it's something I both simultaneously agree and disagree with. I don't want to seem like a Nintendo bootlicker. I'll be the first one to call them out if they're pulling their punches or doing something shitty. But in my opinion, a reason that people say there's a lack of content is due to the circumstances the game released under. Now, yes, factually, the game was missing key things from the beginning. Red's shop, art in the museum, Brewster's, Nook's store upgrades. But most of these were planned to come out in future updates, which they did, and I would agree, yes, they should be in the game from day one. But if they come out in a timely manner, I don't mind waiting a bit longer. And I don't think other people would either. After all, Animal Crossing is a game built around waiting. But you gotta remember the circumstances this game is dealing with. It releases just as the pandemic starts. It peaks with the peak of the pandemic. When everybody was playing this game, they were most likely playing the fuck out of it. You had nothing else to do. You were stuck inside. If we compare this to New Leaf, I'm sure I would have played it non-stop had I the opportunity, but life was going on as usual. When this game released, there was very little stopping you from playing from the crack of dawn to the dead of night, which is why I and many other people did. Doing this with no chance of a break, of course, people were going to be burnt out quicker than usual. And remember how I said that a whole new community had jumped into the Animal Crossing sphere? Well, I mean it. So now Animal Crossing was mainstream. And so were trading and stock market prices, the two easiest ways to get money and get the items and villagers you wanted. These were always around, but because the community was a lot smaller during New Leaf, you couldn't always get what you wanted. It was still a struggle. With New Horizons, no word of a lie. If I wanted a specific item, give me 10 minutes, I'd be on a plane going to get that item. Same with an island with a good stock market price. Yes, I could have just not done this, but I got swept up in the craze, as did many others. Actually, as I was collecting footage for this video, somebody messaged me after seeing me play Animal Crossing, completely legally of course. I didn't know how I knew them, but I brought up the trading website Nookazon, and we twigged that we most likely added each other from that for a trade. We start chatting about Animal Crossing, and after mentioning New Horizons, I told them about my experience/theory about people getting burnt out because of these trading services. And they agreed. It was way too easy to get what you want. As the philosopher Jagger said,
"You can't always get what you want."
New Horizons could not live up to the situation around it. I don't want to be making excuses for poor development, but it's true. At the end of the day, in my opinion, it's a really good game. The selling points that they focused on, they went full send with them. I don't think I have any problems with them. But my problem with the game is what they actually chose to base the game around. That customizability. Obviously, when I was going through the games, that was something I brought up as a positive, and I still believe it is. But New Horizons took customizability so far, whilst also neglecting core aspects of the franchise, such as the villagers, which makes it feel like less of an Animal Crossing game. So now for the next installment, Nintendo has a choice. Do they keep expanding customizability options in the next game, straying further from the series' roots? Or do they take a step back and try to return to the series' roots with odds that people will say that the game is a step backwards? Right now, it's looking like a lose-lose for the series. But let's not be a doomer, we'll just wait and see. Finally, let's answer that question we asked at the start. What is the best Animal Crossing game? Let me give you two answers because I know people will complain about a cop-out over my second answer. So, if I put aside all my personal opinions and bias, which game represents the series the best, has the best features, and is still fun to play to this day? This might not be a surprise, but I think it has to be New Leaf. Although New Horizons is the newest and most polished, it strays a good bit from the series' roots, which can put a lot of people off. And the earlier games, GameCube and Wild World, lack a lot of polish and features that people have grown accustomed to. I think it has to be New Leaf over City Folk, as it is portable, which I don't think anybody will argue is a downside. It has basically everything from City Folk and more. The only downgrade I can think of from City Folk is the villager personalities, but even though they're a bit more toned down, they're still interesting to talk to. New Leaf kind of just strikes that perfect balance of keeping the old fans in and also bringing in a load of new fans. Now, for my second answer for which is the best game. My genuine opinion is that there is no best Animal Crossing game. One of the most important things when it comes to an Animal Crossing game is that it makes the people want to come back to it. All the games do this in their own unique ways. Is it the limitations that make sure you come back to it, like waiting for fossils to be assessed or waiting for trees to grow? Whilst some of the games reel you back in with new updates and endless customizability. My personal opinion is that there isn't a bad game in the mainline series. And the best game is going to differ from person to person, way more than other gaming franchises. I think nostalgia also plays a massive part in what makes an Animal Crossing game somebody's favourite, because it adds to the comfort of the game. By the way, if you want to know what I personally rank the series best to worst, here you go. Just remember, even if I rate it low, that does not mean it is a bad game. I think every mainline Animal Crossing game is at minimum a great game. Overall, I hope you gained something from this video, whether it be entertainment or you want to try out an Animal Crossing game if you haven't before. By the way, very quickly, I want to shout out JVGS Jeff. They are an Animal Crossing player who has been in the scene for fucking longer than I've been alive, okay? And basically, if there was something that I could not get footage for, they had a video about it. So honestly, this video probably wouldn't be possible without them. Not to get all sentimental because that's cringe, but this series is really special to me. Every game has a connection to a certain point in my life, good or bad. And playing those games kind of reminds me of those times. No, fuck off! Don't fucking paint my roof! You fucking loser! You absolute wanker! Thank you all very much for watching. If you've watched to the end, odds are you'll probably want to hear about this announcement. So for the past year and a half, I've been working with a production company called Turning Green. It consists of Party Pug TV, Indie, Azelltown, and Cashew, or Cashew Nut as you might know him. If you've stuck with my channel for a while, you will probably recognize these names. They're some of my best friends. They have spent the past year and a half creating an animated pilot called Clout Chasers. It's all about the trials and tribulations of becoming a YouTuber slash influencer slash anybody who has an audience. They have poured their heart and soul into this. And as I post this, the Kickstarter to fund the series is up and running. So you can go watch the pilot now and go donate to the series if you really like it. Odds are, if you find any of my quote-unquote humor funny, you will probably enjoy this pilot. I personally did a couple of tracks for the pilot, and then I also coloured in a few shots, but mostly music is my area of expertise. Anyway, I really hope you enjoy it, and thank you again for watching.